One of the privileges of representing you in Springfield is working in such a fascinating building, our state capitol, where there is history around every corner.
Your state, your capital. This building, where legislation is written, debated, and signed into law, is quite the structure and has quite the history. So let's take a tour as we go back in time. The history of the Illinois State Capitol. Ground was first broken for the Capitol in 1868. For 20 years, dozens of workers, using horses and wagons, along with rope and wooden winch systems, constructed the Capitol. Mark Sorensen was the former assistant director at the State Archives.
The construction has no vertical steel or iron, which is an amazing thing to me. So all of the vertical structure is masonry, brick on the inside with limestone sheathing on the outside, sometimes granite and marble on the inside, and lots of wood.
The Capitol cost more than $4 million. The original cost, however, seen in this Objects of Interest, was supposed to not exceed $3 million. So, over the years, the General Assembly voted to allocate more money to the project. Janice Moon is a Capitol tour guide for the Secretary of State.
And at the end of construction, they had $6.35 left over, and that money was returned to our state treasurer.
There was some movement during the construction of the building to move the Capitol to another Illinois city. Places like Peoria, Decatur, and Chicago all came up, but to no avail. Standing at 405 feet from the top of the flagpole, the Illinois Capitol is the nation's tallest domed capitol. It's even taller than the U.S. Capitol. The building is an architectural wonder and exhibits Illinois history around every corner. While the Capitol overall looks the same since its construction, this place has gone through many changes. For one, the original main entrance was on the second floor, up a flight of 37 granite steps. Visitors entered through what is now a balcony into the present vestibule of the governor's office. The steps were removed in 1886, making the current first floor the main entrance. The interior of the dome features illustration scenes from Illinois history and stained glass windows. But looking up at the dome today, it didn't always look like this. It once looked like this, blackened. From years of being illuminated by 144 gas jets, the natural flow of warm air up through the dome, and because cleaning it was difficult.
Once the gas was turned off, they put up scaffolding, took out each piece of stained glass and cleaned it front and back, and the plasterwork was all cleaned to its original beauty.
According to a 1962 article in the Illinois State Register, vaults in the Capitol once contained about $1 billion in stocks, bonds, and securities, making the Illinois Treasury the third largest bank in the country. Armed guards protected these vaults around the clock.
People got checks, signed, got paper checks, and they would often go to the treasury, cash their checks if they didn't have a bank. So there would be a guard, there would be bars on the teller's windows, and there was a vault right near there on the second floor that they've now lost and can't find.
Today, the Illinois Treasurer's Office uses a vault to store items that have gone unclaimed. Things like cash, metals, coins, or other items. It's all here. While the Capitol is dressed in several strings of lights around the holidays, this is how the Capitol was once decorated in the early 1900s to celebrate the Illinois State Fair. Today, the Illinois Supreme Court building is across the street from the Capitol, but room 212 inside the Capitol was originally home to the Illinois Supreme Court. Room 309, which has undergone several changes, was once the Illinois Natural History Museum's collection of rocks and stuffed animals, the state library, a lounge, and office for the Secretary of State. Now it's newly renovated for the offices of the Senate Minority Leader. Speaking of renovations, the House and Senate chambers were renovated about 10 years ago.
The renovation of the House and the Senate was to restore it back to the time period when the building originally opened. The House was completed in 2007 and the Senate was completed in 2006, and they are very authentic to the time period.
During the renovation of the chambers, several artifacts were discovered. They include old soda cans, old newspapers, a fallout shelter sign, and cigarette boxes. Walking through the Capitol today, you won't miss this 40 by 20 foot painting. This depiction of George Rogers Clark negotiating with Native Americans in 1778 is the largest painting in the Capitol. The artist?
His name is Gustav Fuchs, and he probably never saw an American Indian, or was probably given some information about this event. And so he paints, let's say, Plains Indians instead of Kaskaskian Indians. So I believe there are teepees, there are things that wouldn't have existed in Illinois at that time or ever.
In 2011, the Capitol underwent renovations to the West Wing. These renovations included bringing the building closer to its original appearance, such as copper doors, exposed brick in the basement, and maiden lampposts, which have a story. These are not the original, as they were deemed too inappropriate to be placed in the Capitol when they first arrived.
And so they, the architects and the builders secretly, I think, boxed those up and took them off to Iowa State Capitol, where they also had the contract to build the Iowa State Capitol.
So now Iowa has them. Illinois has replicas. Another fascinating story involves this room, now room 400. Originally the memorial hall dedicated to soldiers with paintings of Lincoln and Grant at the top of the walls, it became lost. That's because in the 1930s, the ceiling was lowered, so all of these paintings were not seen and forgotten. It wasn't until 1971
an electrician went through the ceiling and came back down and said, "Do you guys understand you have a room full of murals up here?" And so, research was done, and they got people from the archives to come over and looked inside there, and they figured out, oh, that was part of the old war museum. And so they cut a hole in the wall at the 4th floor level in the gallery, and reinforced the wall and the floor, and made that into room 400, and the General Assembly took it over again for a hearing room. And those murals have been restored several times now. Every part of the Capitol has a story behind why it looks the way it does.
As I take a new group on tour, the first word out of their mouth is wow.
It took political will to keep it in Springfield, 2 decades to build, and several renovations. But the Illinois Capitol proudly stands tall in Springfield as a place where laws are written and debated, and as a symbol of democracy.
It is certainly an incredible building, one that is an honor to work in. Did you know that this building is the 6th state capitol in Illinois history? The state rented the first, a 2-story brick building in Kaskaskia, the first capitol, for $4 a day. The next 3 state capitals were in Vandalia, where the capital city was located from 1820 to 1839. The final 2 buildings are in Springfield. The cornerstone for what is now the old state capitol historic site was laid in 1837, and the building was completed in 1853. I hope you enjoyed learning about the history of the Illinois Capitol. If you love history, architecture, and Illinois, I hope you visit us soon.